Good afternoon. Thank you, Megan, for that warm welcome and reminder of just how old I am. My name is Glenn Anderson. I am the Chief Operating Officer of the Plastics Industry Association, also known as Plastic. I would like to first start by sincerely thanking everybody for the opportunity to present here today, as well as to congratulate everyone in the room for Shibaura's 50-year Golden Jubilee. What an impressive milestone. So thank you very much. There we go. The Plastics Industry Association is the only trade association representing the entire plastics value chain, and I'll explain that in a minute. The key part of the presentation this afternoon is our mission is to protect, promote, and grow the plastics industry. As I mentioned, the plastics value chain or supply chain, that's the machinery folks, the equipment, the material folks, processors, your customers, and of course the recyclers. As I am sure everyone is aware, there is a consistent and coordinated attack against plastic, the material. A constant drumbeat that occurs each and every day, and if left unchecked, could negatively affect our ability to do business in the United States. So each year we send out a survey to 2,200 average and random consumers, and we ask the question, do you have a favorable opinion of plastic, again, the material, when compared to other materials like glass, paper, and aluminum? Our latest survey came back 50-50. 50% of the respondents said they favored plastics, and 50% of the respondents favored the other substrates. We have seen a downward trend line in recent years, so it is very clear that we have more work to do. So this afternoon, I would like to share with you just some of the things that we are doing down in Washington, D.C. to protect, to promote, and to grow the plastics industry. Let's start with advocacy, and this would be more on the protect side, if you will. Our advocacy team, led by Jason Eberstein, works each and every day to protect the industry from harmful legislation, harmful litigation, and harmful regulation. The team combats misinformation that negatively impacts the favorability of plastic. We educate plastic policymakers, both public and private, about the impact of choosing alternative materials over plastic. We maintain a network of like-minded and aligned groups and organizations that we can count on to help defend the importance of plastic. I'd like to play a real short video for you. Now, more on the promote side of the business, our communications team, led by Stephanie Polis, proactively promotes industry across a media spectrum and provides real-time responses in today's rapid news cycle. Plastics produces various publications to keep members and the public informed about our industry, including the PERC Report, Inside Plastics, and our association blog, and I encourage everyone to take a look at some of those excellent resources to help run your businesses. Through digital communication channels and social media, plastics amplifies the facts, the good news, and stories of our industry. Continuing along with the promote side, our communication team also engages in building relationships with external media in many ways, like with press releases, op-eds, interviews, all in an effort to promote and defend our industry. This slide shows the various publications that our association has been mentioned in or has placed op-eds in, including national outlets like the New York Times and the Washington Post, and also the industry trades like the Plastics News. Our communications team is here to help. If you ever need assistance responding to a media request or need communications advice, I would encourage you to reach out to us. Now I'd like to tell a brief story, if I may. About 2 years ago, our CEO, Matt Seaholm, many of you may have met him already, he was driving in Minnesota, and he was headed down the highway, and he looked and he saw a billboard. And on that billboard, it said, "Plastics recycling is a myth." And that was a source of real frustration for him, because on the bottom right-hand corner of that billboard, it wasn't an NGO, it wasn't an environmental group, it was a company that produced their products with materials other than plastics, so they decided, let's take a shot at plastics. Again, this was a real source of frustration, and Matt said, we're going to do something about it. So we created the Recycling is Real advocacy and communications program dedicated to defending plastics recycling, and the Recycling is Real campaign has highlighted individual workers behind the recycling industry. They've shined spotlights on many of the employees who carry out recycling each and every day. Recycling works every day here in the United States, and we all know it. So this coordinated effort was designed to show policymakers and brand executives that recycling is, in fact, very real. Through the sharing of imagery and videos, thereby improving perception of plastic as a recycled material and reducing the threat of harmful policies. To drive home the Recycling is Real message, Plastics served digital content to targeted audiences, including federal and state policymakers, key executive branch officials, and downstream company executives. Since the launch of Recycling is Real in 2023, the advertising campaign has had measurable effect. I'd like to play one more very short video.
Very important work in recycling because recycling is real.
We have a very good sustainability story, and we are part of the circular economy and part of the solution for making sure that there is enough material for the next generation.
Sustainability and circularity are at the core of what we do. Yes, recycling is real.
Recycling is real.
So that was just a very short segment of a much longer video of a series of 12. And there's, I believe, 4 or 5 more in the planning stages. So we continue to beat the drum on recycling and how important it is to our industry. Let's talk about sustainability for just a second. Our sustainability team is led by Patrick Krieger, and his team works each and every day to create a more sustainable plastics industry. We continually engage in initiatives that promote circularity, address plastics in the environment, and to make sure we're using our resources responsibly. One of the initiatives that Patrick and his team have developed is called Operation Clean Sweep, also known as OCS. And Megan, like you said about acronyms, Washington, D.C. is loaded with them. And I'll share a few of them with you as we go on this afternoon. This Operation Clean Sweep, known as OCS, is the largest plastic stewardship program in the world, working to eliminate resin loss throughout the environment. Where we can eliminate plastic from getting into the environment, we absolutely must. OCS is all about stopping pre-production plastic from getting into the environment, and when it does, mitigate it immediately. And this program is so important that it requires certification, much like the ISO 14001 did. I know I'm dating myself with that reference, but some of you may remember all that. But in order to participate in this program, you must be certified by a third-party accreditation company. So we take it very, very seriously. Another initiative is called the Flexible Film and Recycling Alliance, also known as FFRA. This is another new program that the sustainability group at Plastics has built and dedicated to a robust and healthy recycling system for flexible materials, all with the goal of increasing our recycling rates. I should mention that both OPS and FFRA are revenue-generating initiatives for plastics. For those of you that don't know, our revenue comes from you as members and also through NPE. So these are very important initiatives that the teams that work on these, the members that want us to work on these special projects, also provide more revenue to help us to be able to execute it, to be able to staff it, and provide the resources that we need. Our member engagement team is led by Ashley Hood Morley. In addition to NPE, Plastics organizes over 35 industry-leading events, all to arm our members with important information to help run your businesses. For example, the new National Plastics Conference, called NPC, is what was the fall meeting. Well, now it's being branded new. There's new content. There's new reasons for everyone to come to Houston in September. And it's very, very important that you join us to the extent that you're able. In addition, we have a spring meeting that will stay the same. It will also include a fly-in so that you and your customers can meet the legislators up on Capitol Hill. In addition, we also have another acronym called FLIP, which is the Future Leaders in Plastics. And to be to be a member of FLIP, you have to be under 40 years old. Thank you, Megan. At NPE, the FLIP reception had over 1,000 people at the event. So that bodes very, very well for our industry going forward. We were very concerned about 6 years between shows, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Moving on to the grow portion of this, I'm going to talk a little bit high-level economics. Chris, I am not an economist, but this is specific to the plastics industry. Our chief economist, his name is Dr. Perk Pineda, whom I'm sure some of you may have met. I believe he's even presented here. He plays a vitally important role to help us protect, promote, and grow our industry. This particular slide is the latest Plastics U.S. macroeconomic outlook, which shows slower growth this year, particularly in the second half of the year. With that said, there could still be some surprises, much like Q2 GDP is. When you look at the slide, Perk predicted a 2.4% growth in Q2 GDP, but he ended up exceeding all the forecasts, coming in at 2.8. So there is some good news. However, the unemployment rate is expected to increase in the second half of the year and in the next year. And inflation continues to be high, but it is now increasing at a decreasing rate. So hopefully we're getting to the plateau of inflation. Most importantly, Perk wanted me to share with you that the sky is not falling. This is not another 2008, 2009 event. But with inflation being where it is and higher interest rates, it is certainly causing the processors, your customers, a reason to pause, to focus on cost reduction initiatives, and of course to take less risk. Talk a little bit about plastic production and capacity utilization. As you can see the slide here, plastics production has remained above 2017 levels, but has slowed since 2022. Also, since coming out of the pandemic, plastic production has remained relatively flat. Latest readings show that it has pulled back in June from May, but is still above the 2017 levels. Looking at this chart, you can see it's from June 2019 to June 2024. But what PERC did was he used the level at the year 2017 and called that either 0 or 100, and from there, all the ups and downs that have gone on since then. So that's how you get the index of 2017. Capacity utilization in recent months has stayed around 80%, which is also above pre-pandemic levels. And as we talked last night at dinner, the magic number I've always used in my former life was 85%. Now I think it's come down a little bit, maybe to 80%. And what we found that is when our customers' capacity got to that magic number of 80 or 85%, they soon started to invest in new equipment and capital expenditures. With slower production, sales are obviously not increasing, so high inflation makes it that much more challenging to meet profitability goals. I know I'm not telling you anything new there, but that's the environment we're in right now. But again, all this being said, PERC is still cautiously optimistic that we will see visible signs of growth in the first half of 2025. The plastics industry outlook shows growth in both resin and production output conversion both this year and next. However, if you look at machinery and molds, this could be another down year because the full forecast was based on the first half of the year, which was pretty slow, as I'm sure you're seeing. And this is consistent with the slow adjustments in the plastic converters and the slack in capacity. So you can see here on the chart that for the balance of the year, he's estimating or forecasting a 4.4 reduction over last year in machinery and a 4.6% reduction in molds. PERC has just created a new report. It's called the Plastic Demand Estimate. It's an estimation of plastics product demand, which serves as a valuable indicator for plastics processors and the entire plastics industry supply chain, and it'll be released monthly. This is an estimation of the value of shipments coming from the plastic converters, again, your customers. It can be downloaded from the site here on the slide. A new estimate for June will come out next week. I do have copies of the May report, hard copies of the May report here with me if anybody is interested. So this is a new program that PERC is putting on and should help just see where you are relative to the rest of the industry. So now I'd like to talk about something I'm a little more familiar with. Let's share some facts and figures coming out of NPE 2024. And I'm sure everyone knows we had 6 years between shows. We didn't know what we didn't know. We weren't exactly sure what we were going to find. But one thing we knew for sure is we had to attract a newer and younger audience. So if you look at the total registration, just over 51,000, with 32,000, over 32,000 of them being the attendees. It doesn't include any of the exhibitors. The international attendees, over 15,000 from 133 countries, and in 2018 we only had 121 countries, which this is the most international show that we've ever had. And let me go back to the first-time attendees. That 20,378 first-time attendees represented 63% of all attendees. So the content that we created, the educational systems that we created, all with the idea to attract that newer, younger audience, it worked. So we're really excited about that, and we will take that and build from it. Moving on down, C-suite attendees. So we didn't hit the 55,000 registrants that we hoped for. However, if you look at the metrics, C-suite attendees more than doubled than what we saw in 2018. In 2018, we had just under 5,000 C-suite attendees, and this year we had over 10,000. And when you combine that with the decision influencers, the purchasing agents and the buyers, we also increased there as well. So while we didn't see the quantity, we certainly feel that you saw the quality. And if that's not true, please pull me aside. I definitely want to know that. But that's the consistent feedback we're hearing. Where are we here? First time, another really interesting tidbit of information that I was not aware of, having been on the other side for NPE 2018 as a member. The economic impact to Orlando and the state of Florida was over $141 million just in those 5 days that we were down in Orlando, May 6th through 10th. That bodes very well for the future of NPEs as well, because we are scheduled to be there in 2027. I just signed a contract for 2030 and 2033. So we will be in Orlando for the foreseeable future. But in addition, and last but not least, we had, with 300 first-time exhibitors, we also had 700 companies on the wait list. And as we went through the cycle, we had a number of companies that canceled, and we were very quickly able to reinforce them with those that were on the wait list. And we will take specific actions to make sure we stay engaged with those 700 companies that could not exhibit at NPE, and make sure they stay current. And we're going to do everything we can to be able to increase the floor space at OCCC. But unfortunately, the total exhibit space was just over 1.1 million square feet. We are the only show at the Orlando County Convention Center that utilizes the entire show for the event. There are a number of 2 shows held simultaneously that would take up the entire facility, but we are the only show that takes up the 1.1 million square feet. Not to mention, we are also the heaviest trade show. So all the equipment that you shipped in and the whole industry shipped in, that equipment amounted to a very high level. It was about 20 million pounds, and it is the heaviest show that OCCC puts on. So in addition to the anecdotal feedback that I just sent, let me move to the next slide. And these are just some snippets. I'm not going to go through the entire list because they're pretty basic. But one of them that caught my eye was the best Monday that we've had. I know back in 2018 when I was on the other side of the desk, I thought Monday in May of 2018 was the best Monday I had ever seen at an NPE. And my first NPE was 1985. So to hear that Monday was as good as it was really bodes well for the rest of the week, and I'll share some other anecdotes with you here in a moment. One of the ones we heard was we hit our show targets by Tuesday afternoon. Not this particular anecdote, but I know one of the major equipment manufacturers had 900 leads at the end of the day on Tuesday. So they were over the moon with both the quality with the quantity, and now they're sorting out the quantity. And then the other one was I had a year's worth of meetings in just a couple of days. This particular large machinery exhibitor scheduled 150 meetings at NPE, and at formal sit-down meetings. And by the end of the week, they had over 250 meetings. So they too were very, very positive with the results. So in addition to the anecdotal feedback that I've highlighted, I've had the opportunity to meet many of the exhibitors both during NPE and after. And almost all of that feedback has been incredibly positive. And again, if you feel differently, we need to know. So please do not be shy. But we do know that there are things we've learned from creating this, attracting this newer and younger audience, the content that we provided in 2024 was far different than what we provided in 2018. So we do recognize that there are things that we've learned and we can do to make NPE 2027 another can't-miss experience. Let me share some of those with you. I had the bright idea of having our first keynote speaker at 8 o'clock on Monday morning. Probably not a good idea. We're not going to do that again, I can assure you. It was a great content, it was a great keynote speaker, Mike Chico from FANUC on the machine tool side. But at 8 o'clock, an hour before the show starts, obviously, no exhibitors were going to be there. So that's a lesson learned, and we will probably move that to later in the week. This year, unlike any other year before, we had 3 tiers of pricing. So those that didn't get guest passes that you would give out to your customers and they pay for it, there was actually 3 tiers of pricing, and you were able to see different things based on the price that you paid. And the more you paid, the more you could see, obviously. That came back as incredibly complex, very confusing. The attendee didn't know exactly what he paid for. So another lesson learned. We will probably only have 2 tiers of pricing, although this is a committee decision, so we'll have to wait and see what the committee decides. And then, of course, like every trade show, and we've heard it forever, is the cost to do business. We recognize that even with inflation doing what it's doing, it's been an even bigger issue, but the cost to move material to and from your booth to run your machines, the cost of food having to go through Sodexo, that's a monopoly. We put pressure on them. We do everything we can to get those costs down, but that is a constant struggle, as is the cost of rigging and getting your equipment in and out of the booth. But so we will continue to look at ways to keep those costs down, but that is a real struggle, and we'll see what happens between now and 2027. But lastly, as some of you may know, we will hold the NPE 2024 wrap-up meeting in September down in Louisville. And at that time, we will review all of what worked well, what didn't work well, what can we do to improve, and if we can improve it, eliminate it. So you've seen new content in 2024. You will see more new content in 2027. But it, again, is to make sure that we attract that newer, younger audience and get that next level of employee in our industry making a great living like I have for the 41 years that I've been here. So with that, I think I have a few moments for questions if anybody has any. I hope they're not economic related. Okay, thank you very much.